Kansas, gateway to Oz. Under the rainbow, this is where it was. Hollyhocks and red ripe tomatoes, hand-churned homemade ice cream. Let me tell you, Kansas is more than tornadoes. It's the best part of Dorothy's dream.
Today on Around Kansas, we start with a look at Herk Harvey and his work on the film Carnival of Souls. Then join us for a look at the life of Gary Clarke and his connection to the Topeka Zoo. Next, we'll have a story about how to be safe while traveling in winter conditions. Then we'll have a poem from Ron Wilson, and we'll look at the Juke Box. Stay with us.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Welcome to Kansas.
Herk Harvey was born in Colorado and attended KU, where he studied film and later taught at the university. Though he made more than 400 films, he is best known for the horror classic Carnival of Souls. Released in 1962, the film was partially filmed in Lawrence and Lecompton. Harvey died in 1996, and the film database imdb.com has some insightful quotes from the versatile filmmaker. In 1990, he was asked about how he first came up with the idea for Carnival of Souls. I was on location in California, shooting an industrial film for Centron, and decided to travel home by car. Driving back, I was passing Salt Lake, and I saw for the first time an abandoned amusement park called Saltaire. Well, the sun was setting, and with the lake in the background, this was the weirdest looking place I'd ever seen. I stopped the car and walked about a half or 3/4 of a mile to the place, and it was spooky indeed. And I thought, gee, what a tremendous location, because it's completely isolated from everything and everybody. I came back and talked to John Clifford, who was a writer at Centron and a co-worker, and told him that I needed a horror script that would revolve around Saltaire. So basically, in talking, we came up with some of the general plot, and he wrote the script in a matter of a couple of weeks. When asked if he was glad that the horror movie was his claim to fame, he replied, "I have to say yes and no. When you work someplace for 35 years making educational and industrial films, and the one feature that you make is really what you're known for, a film on which you spent a total of maybe 5 weeks, that to me doesn't seem right. Some of the things I'm much more proud of, we did in the industrial area. We shot hour-long films in 2 days, musicals with people like Eddie Albert and Ed Ames and so on. Some of those with skits and original music and all that are really kind of interesting. And I think that many of the other films that we made in the educational and industrial area really had something to say. Yet, as you say, I'm known for Carnival of Souls." Roger Ebert awarded the film 3 stars out of 4, stating, "Unlike most of today's horror movies, Carnival of Souls has few special effects, some wavy lines as we pass through various levels of existence, and that's it. Instead, it depends on crisp, black and white photography, atmosphere, and surprisingly effective acting. Carnival of Souls has a cult following and is a traditional Halloween treat for lots of folks."
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
ValleyVet.com, ValleyVet.com, Valley Vet Supply.
Hi, I'm Kim Mandering with Hardy Insurance. I'm here to help you with all of your farm and ranch needs. When it comes to protecting your operation and your family, you need a name you can trust at a price you can afford. Call me today or visit hardyaviationins.com.
Nevermore do you walk the earth, his spirit rides here still. Roman knows the wild wind blows. Roman knows your legend grows. No one knows if we'll see your light once again.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Hi, I'm Tim.
This is my wife, Kat, my parents, Jerry and Linda, and my kids, Isaac and Lizzie. My parents traded their first careers to take over my mom's family farm shortly before I was born. When I graduated high school, my parents made me leave to see the world. I started on the corporate track, but soon wondered what farm life might really be like.
Watch our story and the stories of other young Kansas food producers at kansaslivingmagazine.com/meetafarmer.
This segment brought to you by the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center in Oakley.
Well, friends, many of you have no doubt visited the world-famous Topeka Zoo over the years. And some of you know, but others might not realize how it became the world-famous Topeka Zoo. And that was through the former zoo director, the late Gary Clarke. And we lost Gary recently, and I can say that anybody that ever met Gary, it was like opening a bottle of champagne. He was just the most enthusiastic, interesting, warm, compassionate man. He loved animals, obviously. He loved Africa. He operated cowabunga tours and took many people on safari, sharing his love and passion and inspiring others to do the same. So to pay tribute to our friend Gary Clarke, I thought it would be perfect to share the words of our friend Lloyd Zimmer. And Lloyd and his wife Jackie is the curator of the Osa and Martin Johnson Museum in Chanute. So Lloyd's tribute was so lovely and so heartfelt that I thought I would share his words with you today in remembering Gary Clarke. Cowabunga. If you can walk, you can dance. If you can talk, you can sing. Such is the feeling one was left with after only a brief meeting with Gary Clarke, friend, mentor, and sometimes even a thorn in my side. The old Dega boy took his last breath on this planet 2 nights ago, but his spirit flies high around the world. He lived most of his adult life in Topeka, Kansas, but his spirit was in Africa, and Africa was clearly in his spirit. At only 24, he began an incredible journey, creating almost from scratch the world-famous Topeka Zoo, a story unto itself. Then he completed 139 African safaris before health issues interrupted his goal of 200. His 140th safari was through his book, Gary Clarke's Africa, Wildlife, Rainbows, and Laughter. This safari including the most guests as they saw Africa through Gary's eyes and his words. There simply was no better storyteller, and at his best, Gary kept an audience of 1 or 1,000 enraptured with his tales for hours. This picture from a book signing at my store in 2011 was taken nearly 2 hours after closing time. Gary was on, and no one wanted to leave, including myself. Some of my own favorite memories of Gary are from when he would just hang out at the store, often greeting visitors and welcoming them to the shop. He would walk around, sharing stories and telling them about his favorite books and maps in the shop. I cannot count how many times such a visitor would tell me how lucky I was to work in Gary's bookstore. I greatly regret that after moving from Topeka, I did not see Gary as much as I wished. A clear lesson that repeats itself over and over as to making the time for your friends and loved ones. But, and said with Gary Clarke emphasis, his spirit and his life has impacted and can be found inside of the thousands and thousands of people across the U.S., Europe, and most of all, Africa. And through all of us, Gary Clarke will live for many more generations. Asante, my friend. Thank you, Lloyd, for a beautiful tribute to an incredible man. I can think of no better way to honor Gary's memory than to visit the zoo. Take your kids, teach them about wildlife, and learn alongside them. Go to Africa and tell them Gary's singing. Welcome to Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in Oakley, Kansas on I-70 at exit 76. I-70, after all, is America's Main Street, and we're right here on Main Street for you. Now that I'm an Oakley resident, I still come in almost every day, and I sit and listen to the conversations of the people around me. You know, the guys who are talking about the big elk they just bagged, or the folks who are taking their kid to college for the first time. People just traveling up and down the highway. Real people, just like you and me. And they find just what I find here, real people to serve them. There's history, there's scenery. We hope you'll stop and see us soon. Welcome to Oakley.
Tarwater Farm and Home is a 40-year-old local family-owned business. Clothing for work and play, seeds and feeds, boots, toys for the kids, and tools you'll need for around the house and farm. And a service department to keep them in top running order. It's a big store, so take some time to see what they have for your farm and home. Tarwater's everyday pricing is like others' sale prices. When you need it, they've got it. Tarwater Farm and Home, 4107 North Topeka Boulevard.
The land here tells a story. It offers up fossils of extinct beasts, ruins of native villages, farmsteads and battlegrounds. Walk the shore of historic Scott Lake and imagine the native peoples on the hillsides above you. Listen, you can hear their voices on the wind. Discover the secrets of Scott County on the ground where history happened, or in the comfort of the El Cuartelejo Museum and the Jerry Thomas Gallery. I promise you will find an amazing story.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Good morning and welcome to Around Kansas. I'm Deb Goodrich, your host, and I am at my other job this morning at the Fort Wallace Museum. Hope you can come out and see us sometime. Well, no matter where you are around Kansas, I can guarantee that you have been having one heck of a winter. So while the ice and snow may be with us for a little while longer, we've got a few weeks yet to go, staying safe in the ice and snow and the cold is really important. So I visited with our friend Marty Yunker, and Marty has put together a list of things we should always carry with us in the car, our winter survival kit. And Marty has actually been in this situation where he had to survive while stranded in the snow, and he did because he's a pretty skilled guy at it. But there was a couple not far from him that was stranded that was not so fortunate. So that reminds us of how really serious this is, folks. This isn't something to joke about. We really need to get serious about being safe in the midst of those circumstances. So let's take a look at what we need to stay safe in the winter. The first question to ask, is this trip worth risking my life or the lives of others? Is a false sense of bravado going to lure me into taking unnecessary risk? We may think we're safe because we're in a long line of traffic on the interstate or there are farmhouses near, but blowing snow and whiteout conditions can transform any landscape, putting your life and the lives of your loved ones in jeopardy. It is imperative that you assemble a small winter travel kit in the case of just such an emergency. Keep in mind the number of passengers that you may have with you. This is a basic kit. Additional items may be added, and that will add to your comfort level if trapped. 1. Small cargo or gym bag. A 1-gallon paint can could also be purchased to store items and later used with a candle to create a radiant heater or to melt snow for water. 2. Plumber's candles or commercial survival candles. This is the most important item in your winter travel kit. In an actual survival situation, the one thing that is guaranteed is that the vehicle engine will not keep you warm. The motor will gradually lose heat until it is running and no longer producing heat. The purpose of the candle is not to keep you warm, but to keep temperatures above freezing. Hard candy, hot cocoa, tea bags, dried soup mixes, matches, and toilet paper in a Ziploc bag. It is essential to protect these things, and in a survival environment, they can be great morale boosters. Also, a little extra sugar at rest will become heat calories. 4. Flashlight with batteries stored separately. An addition to your kit could be a hand crank radio with weather band and USB charging port. 5. A wool blanket. Wool only retains 20% of moisture when wet. That is why wool insulates even when wet. Online military surplus sales are a good source of these blankets. 6. A folding shovel and cover. Can be used for minor chores and digging out in clear weather. 7. Highway flares for signaling purposes. 8. Hand warmers. Neoprene gloves for tire changes or other tasks. 9. Something to keep you occupied. Books or games to help pass the time. Number 10. Booster cables and a tow strap. It is important that you stay with your vehicle. It is the largest thing that is visual to search and rescue. Also, it is your survival capsule. If you are in a survival situation, the only trip you should make is to retrieve your survival kit from the trunk. Brush snow away from your clothing when you re-enter the vehicle. You need to remain dry to prevent cold weather injury. Open the window a small amount to allow fresh air to enter the vehicle. Do not attempt to walk out. This is where most deaths occur. Above all, use common sense.
About 6 jumps later, I was laying on the ground and thinking, boy, my shoulder sure hurt. I kept waiting, and it didn't get better and didn't get better. I'd heard about Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center on the radio. Got down there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 11:30, the procedure was all over, and it just kept getting better and better. And within 6 weeks, I was back digging post holes and doing the other hard work that I'd been doing before the accident. And I'm really pleased. It's really worked out well for me.
Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to western Kansas.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Farming is a gamble. A farmer puts a crop into the ground, a rancher raises a calf, not knowing what kind of weather conditions, market conditions, or other factors could affect it in the end. So farming is a gamble, just like Las Vegas. This is a poem I wrote titled Gambling Man. Did you hear about the guy who went on an amazing trip and hit it rich, winning money at an amazing clip? I hear stories of those high-rolling gambling bigwigs who roll the dice in Vegas and really hit it big. But I'm way too conservative or risk-averse, they say, to take a chance on losing all my money in this way. Yet maybe the biggest gamblers aren't in Vegas after all, but rather in the country at agriculture's call. That's where a farmer takes the gamble to plant a crop of wheat, never knowing if it will survive the drought or freeze or heat. And just as Lady Luck can snatch a gambler's money when they win it, a hailstorm can claim a Kansas wheat crop in a minute. A mother cow takes a year to breed and feed and thrive, but that whole year income's lost if the baby calf does not survive. The market shows the farmer the value of his crops, but it's a gamble to sell before the market drops. So maybe the biggest gamblers aren't the ones with Vegas claims, but rather the farmers and ranchers out here on the Kansas plains. I think I'll take the risks I know with crops and with cattle, instead of trying to beat casino odds in some Las Vegas battle. Did you hear about my friend whose Vegas trip caused such a fuss? He drove there in a $20,000 car and came back in a $100,000 bus. Happy trails.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, and we're glad to answer and work with you.
As fourth-generation farmers themselves, Heinen Brothers Ag Service understands the risk and rewards of farming. So when it comes to quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia, call Heinen Brothers Ag today, 800-760-4964.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
The soundtrack for the history of the American West would have to include the songs the cowboys composed along the trail, like Whoopie-Tie-I-O, Get Along Little Dogies, and the Old Chisholm Trail. It would also include the songs the cowboys learned as they were growing up. Many of those songs were ones they learned in church. Later songs, which are now classics such as Tumbling Tumbleweeds and Cool Water, became popular because they were used in Western movies. These songs gained further popularity by being exposed on the radio by both live performances and recordings. One often overlooked outlet for cowboy songs is the Juke Box. As a child, I remember going into small-town cafes and hearing Gene Autry or the Sons of the Pioneers coming from the bubbling Wurlitzer jukebox in the corner. Louis Glass invented the jukebox in 1889, only 12 years after Thomas Edison had made the first phonograph. Of course, that first jukebox didn't look much like the ones we have today, or even the classic ones from the 1940s. The music machine wasn't even called a jukebox until years later. The name jukebox was derived from the name of the dance halls of the early 20th century. They were known as juke joints. The word juke itself was a term used by African Americans to describe dancing. The popularity of the jukebox began to take off in the 1920s after the 78 RPM record and electrical amplification were invented. The 30s and 40s were great years for the jukebox and helped increase the popularity of country and western music, especially the honky-tonk sound of people like Floyd Tillman, Ted Daffin, Ernest Tubb, and of course the western swing sounds of Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. Jukeboxes were especially popular in clubs and roadhouses because not only were they cheaper than bands, they were usually more reliable. Plus, they gave you the music of the most popular artists of the time. During the time the jukebox was becoming popular, country music was also undergoing major changes. The barn dances in the hills with their fiddles and banjos were giving way to songs about drinking and cheating that were performed in bars. In order to be heard, the musicians started using amplification, string basses, electric guitars, pianos, and drums. The added bottom of the bass and drums, plus new styles of rhythm playing, made the music more conducive to dancing, especially for couple dancing, as opposed to group dancing, as in the old square dances. The jukebox, with its big bass sound, fit right in with this trend, and it's never stopped. The jukebox has come a long way in the last 130 years. It went from playing one song on a wax cylinder in 1889 to dozens of 78s in the 1920s, to 100 or more 45s in the 1950s, to 100 CD albums 100 years after the jukebox was invented. When most of us think about the jukebox, we think of those Wurlitzers, Seabergs, and Rockolas from the 1940s. But jukeboxes these days have become a part of the digital age. The music is no longer played from a vinyl disc or even a CD. These days they use computer technology and can store hundreds of songs and take up very little space. Hopefully the good ones still find room for cowboy songs.
Welcome to Kansas, gateway to Oz.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
And churned homemade ice cream. Let me tell you, Kansas is more than tornadoes. We're the best part of Dorothy Street.